Mr. Trudeau goes to Washington. I'm Brian Lilly with TheRebel.media. Are you tired of that line yet? Mr. Trudeau goes to Washington? Everyone's making the joke, like Mr. Smith goes to Washington, the great Jimmy Stewart movie. But there's a reason to use it, because just like Jimmy Stewart, who went to Washington and talked, he didn't actually accomplish much. Justin Trudeau is going to go to Washington and talk, but he's not going to accomplish much other than get his name out there. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and I can explain why in a moment, but the fact is there are real substantive issues for Canada to be dealing with. There's the obvious that's been in the news forever, things like Keystone XL, and John Kerry has said, yeah, we didn't approve it and we're probably not going to in the future. That's not going to be talked about. But there's another issue coming up in the near future, and that's called softwood lumber. The deal with the Americans has expired. The last time we didn't have a deal and they started moving protectionist measures, it cost the Canadian economy billions of dollars, thousands and thousands of jobs. It was horrific for certain parts of the country. That's not even on Trudeau's radar. How do I know? He's been telling us, his staff have been telling us everything that's going to be talked about at this conference. And we haven't heard about softwood lumber yet. Then there's the issue that NAFTA could be ripped up by 3 out of the 4 serious presidential candidates that remain. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and Bernie Sanders all say they don't like the North American Free Trade Agreement, the agreement that gives us preferential access to the American market. So much of our economy depends on it. They're talking about ripping it up. And the 4th, Ted Cruz, Trudeau doesn't even want to have good relations with him. But don't worry, he's having a special dinner, and there's lots of fanfare for his visit. Look, that's super, that's wonderful, and I hope it gets Canada some good notices, some good mentions in American media, although as Trudeau was actually arriving at the White House on Thursday morning for his meetings with President Obama, CNN was busy talking about Bernie Sanders. Yeah, that's right, and you can bet the other American networks, they were pretty much the same, so we're not getting the media coverage. What about the congressional coverage? Are members of Congress going to be paying attention? Because as Tony Clement, currently a conservative critic, a conservative leadership potential bidder, but also former cabinet minister at the federal and provincial level, as Tony Clement can tell you, that is where the real work has to be done. Not having fancy dinners at the White House, but convincing members of Congress that Canada matters.
We have always taken the position, as conservatives, when we were in power, even out of power, and I've been to Washington a couple of times since the election already, you have to, I know it's glamorous to have champagne at the White House and to have ballroom dresses and the glitziness of the White House, but the real work gets done at the congressional level. Have good relationships with members of Congress. Have good relationships with the U.S. senators. They hold a lot of power. And by ignoring that, you put Canadian interests at risk.
And Clement described this meeting as a lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. I think for the most part that's going to be true. One of the agreements that Trudeau's signing off on with Obama is actually just affirming something that Prime Minister Harper had signed off on with President Obama. It's good that Canada is getting a nice state dinner. It's good that Canada is getting a bit more media attention than we normally do. I've been to the White House and watched the American media completely ignore the fact that the Canadian Prime Minister was ever there. So there's some good, some positive coming out of Trudeau's meetings. But in the meantime, big issues like softwood lumber, like NAFTA, like the future of our economic relationship with our biggest trading partner being at risk, these are all being ignored. All ignored in favor of palling around with a president who is currently a lame duck and in less than a year won't even be occupying that house at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.